All right, here we are with Discovery Paranormal on United Public Radio Network. I am welcoming you to what's going to be a very interesting show. I think that between the stories and the facts, you have to be able to put together the proper timeline if you're doing an investigation. You know, when I do an investigation, it's about facts, it's about critical thinking. It includes a lot, actually, but basically, it's all the same. You want to be able to fill those cracks in. You want to be able to use the information you have, even if it's just testimonial for people, hearsay. You know, it could give you a direction to go in. But on tonight's show, we're going to talk about extraterrestrials and or aliens and or whatever you want to call them, spirits, beings, star children, whatever, star people, ant people. The show is all about ant people, though, because it comes from a particular point of view of the Hopi Indians, who had told the story about the ant people coming up from under the ground, taking their people under the ground during some major cataclysm that was happening out in the West. And this is the Four Corner region. This is Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, right? In fact, I'm going to be there in a couple of weeks because I'm going to interview some people who have a lot of interesting history about themselves. And weirdly enough, my father, who was not really in my life all that much, I didn't live with him anyway, but you know, he had a lot of issues to begin with. But this dude was born in Eagle Nest, New Mexico, and we're talking about 1920, you know. And the funny thing is, I don't know what the hell all was going on. I mean, these people found their way there. I mean, his parents, my grandparents, were from Yugoslavia and or Greece in that area, you know, but they migrated to America. They worked coal mines in Pennsylvania. They ended up moving into Texas, and then they settled in this place called Eagle Nest, which was probably much like their homeland of Yugoslavia with the mountains and all of that. And they made their family there, you know, 8,400 feet in elevation, man, way up there. Right. So I'm thinking, who the hell's living in this place 100 years ago? You know, really, who really? And, you know, and probably from the lack of oxygen, which made him nuts or whatever. I don't know, man. You know, he was super strong. He owned a service station. He used to pick up transmissions and walk around with them, or engine blocks, like they weren't anything. So, you know, we're all built really big. So I don't know. Really interesting situation. But this happens to be the height of the area of activity that I'm going to be talking about. And it's just kind of funny because skinwalkers, and I have a lot of skinwalker stories from Native Americans, actually from people who live there, who drive on that road. The road used to be called Route 666 from Gallup up to Shiprock, and then it shoots over to Farmington, to, you know, goes east. So this is the road where people claim to have been attacked by skinwalkers, and somebody a friend of mine's friend's father. So it's a story a couple times removed, you know, but yet the guy was this, you know, agricultural type of redneck dude who drove the big truck with the dual wheels. And, you know, he wasn't the type of person that was a storyteller at all. Was attacked driving down the road going 65 miles an hour by something that looked like a man, dog, crazed, high enough. You know, he's in a dually. He's got to look right into its eyes, you know, clawing at him, clawing at the truck, trying to get in. And when he finally he didn't even stop. He sped up. When he sped up, he sped away from this thing, whatever it was. And he got down to Gallup, you know, which is where he was heading, stopped in a gas station to look at his truck because it was at night, you know, and they wanted to be under the lights. And he saw uh, you know, nail marks in the paint, like it actually went down into the metal. There was blood on the outside. Crazy, man. So ever since then, I wanted to go visit this place called Shiprock. So in 1990, I was driving out to Arizona because I was considering to go to Arizona State University, right? And I had, you know, made a detour because the guy who told me the story, my friend Tommy, worked for an oil drilling company, and I had met him on Long Island because his mother lived upstairs from me in the apartment building I lived in South Amityville. So he tells me the story, and then on the way out there, like, I'm going to go all this way. I'm going to stop in and see Tommy. There was no, there was no internet for you newbies. We didn't have any. There's no cell phones at that time, So if you were going to call someone, you had to stop at a payphone to call them, which is kind of nice, not having to be in demand constantly like things are now. Even though you can shut your cell phone off, but anyway, people don't, but you can. So in 1990, I hit this Route 666 and I went up there. Crazy, man, crazy. The energy is crazy. And it's like blue skies everywhere, but there'll be like a thunderstorm right there with lightning coming out of it, moving along. And a lot of red rock mesas, bluffs, or mesa is Spanish for table, right? So there's a lot of those. So they look like, just tables that come out of nowhere. And a lot of it, those, and shiprock itself, because shiprock is a rock that looks like a big ship. They call it shiprock. Shiprock is actually a volcanic plug. So when there was a volcanic explosion there, the remnants of it, the pieces that were coming out, and what ended up becoming what shiprock is, obviously there was other debris around there, and then over the years that debris got washed away, rain, floods, and that type of thing. So what's left is this shiprock, which is all rock. And the Navajo, it's Navajo territory. Navajo own it. Don't even try going near it unless you have permission or a permit from the Navajo. Otherwise, you'll be in big, big trouble. But the fact of the matter is, and they changed the name of the road. It was 666. Now it's called something else, but four something or whatever. It's the reality is the energy. I pick up on energy, and I'm like, well, what is it about this area that's so special? And at one time, it was all Hopi Indian territory, right? But they had wars. They were enemies with other tribes, and they'd fight each other out for that kind of territory. So now Shiprock belongs to the Navajo. In fact, the area that the Hopi Indians built a lot of their systems of living, their little cities, is also now Navajo territory, right? So, but I'm interested in the ant people. And this is how they were described. And we're going back about, maybe 17,000, 18,000 years. It's very hard to put dates on things because they didn't have a way to put dates on things. So you have to judge more the period of when they were known to have existed, and their technology had changed because these ant people took the Hopi under the ground to survive these cataclysms. Could be, volcanic eruptions. It could be anything, right? They must have had some kind of predetermined knowledge on what was going to happen to take these people underground to begin with. They taught the Hopi said that these ant people taught them about stars, about star systems, about math, and also how to survive in the arid conditions that were going to be, what was going on up on the surface. So that was a really interesting story. And this civilization is built around it. And just to the north, a little northeast of there, there's also Aztec development, actually Aztec Indians who were up there and had some kind of outpost, they said. So you have Aztecs involved. And we know Aztecs about stars and math and things like that were pretty advanced because, something had brought them to that point of being advanced, right? So the shiprock thing, I'm looking around on the map, right? And I'm going to be in that region, and I want to kind of visit all these areas. Eagle Nest, where my father was born, even though I can't stand him. He's long dead, but it'd be kind of cool because the whole family had lived there. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Because the middle of nowhere, like me personally, I need a store. I need a couple stores close by, maybe a place, a Target or a TJ Maxx. I need something, man. I got to have something. And also interactions with some people. I'm an introvert for the most part, but I do like to socialize at times. So just with the right people, put that. Anybody cool. That's how I listen. Anybody is cool. But it's interesting that this is the hotbed of a lot of sightings and activity over the years. This was the lands that were developed in our U.S. military to test projects and secret projects and rockets and all kinds of things. You know, this whole area that those four states, basically, it's a big round area, right? And I'm drawn to some places there, and there's volcanoes there that are very high peaks, 13, 14, 15,000 feet or whatever. You can't really get into them. People hike, they hike up there, and they do that, right? And, you know, people love to climb. And I appreciate that because they bring cameras and they take pictures, and I get to see things in places that I'll probably never, ever, never, 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 ever see. You know, but that's really cool that they do that. You know, but if you're going to think of ant people and you're going to think of the stories of how so-called extraterrestrials helped mankind develop, this is a great place to start. And it's also a lot of cool stories behind it because, you know, the person I'm going to visit is a you know, you might call a medicine man. You know, she's a shaman and tells a lot of healing stories. You know, and healing stories are supposed to take you to a certain place. So if you got some problem or whatever, you know, it's the moral of the story type of thing, right? But he's got a lot of sightings unto himself. It's so common that, you know, because like where they live, there's not a lot of lights around, you know, so you can go out into the sticks where it's the sky. You can literally see all the stars in the sky as much as your eye can fill. But these are the people who are always looking up. So they're going to see things. And then also the star children, the story on how, you know, these beings mated with women and they had children, and sometimes they came back and took the children away. Sometimes they left the children, and those children ended up becoming like elders, and they wanted to reclaim the earth. So that's pretty interesting. But so the Hopi story, the ant people, basically describes a lush, beautiful paradise type of world that preceded the one we live in now. The Hopi lived in the first world, but their lives were too easy and they were very lazy. A great cataclysm came and the first world came to a violent end, but the ant people invited the Hopi to come live underground with them where they would be safe. The ant people fed the Hopi and taught them many things. The Hopi learned to build their dwellings into the rocks and to grow food with very little water. And they also learned about, like I said, stars and mathematics. When the destruction had ended, the ant people took the Hopi up to the surface to show them the second world. The Hopi were able to live in the harsh desert that was their new home now, you know, because of the skills that they had learned from the ant people. So then you have the petroglyphs. So you have ancient petroglyphs that depict the ant people, which is, you know, part of their legend, right? Located near the largest pre-Columbus Hopi Pueblo, which Cackle Canyon. So the Pueblo at Cackle Canyon once supported a population of about 5,000 people between 850 and 1250 CE. So, and that's according to the U.S. Parks Department. Looking at Cackle from the air, it's easy to draw a comparison between the ancient Hopi city and the ant colony and an ant colony. The petroglyphs that depict the ant people legend are as beautiful or as they are mysterious, basically. So they put a lot into this, and these were signs for the skies. They wanted people up in the sky. This wasn't just for people walking around to see. You know, you had to see these images from the sky if you really want to see them, right? So this goes on to what are the ant people? All right. The Anasazi Indians are a very mysterious group of people that used to dwell in caves, right? And an area now known as the Four Corners during the Archaic period. Anasazi means ancient enemy by the Navajo, who now prefer to call them the Ancient Ones, right? They politically corrected it. So Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, all converge in those areas, like I mentioned earlier. Archaeologists have been investigating the homes of the cliff dwellers since the discovery in 1888. Part of this area is in Mesa Verde National Park, Arizona. Mesa Verde, green table. See, I'm doing my Spanish, man. I'm getting into it. Mesa Verde means green table. Never mind. Have you, let's see, this guy wrote an article called The Grand Canyon and the Ancient Mythology. And in the late 13th century, an Anasazi started to build their homes into the cliffs. Archaeologists believed it was for protection and to better defend themselves against enemies. After about only 30 years during the 14th century, they began to seal the doorways and abandon their cliff homes to never return. The Hopi are their descendants. Hopi means peaceful people or little ones. They are referred to as part of the Pueblo people after the Spanish word for village or town. The Spanish conquistadors discovered the Hopi people in the 1600s, and it wasn't good for the Hopi people, and it wasn't good for anybody to meet a conquistador, as a matter of fact. The Anasazi started living in the area around 500 AD, then left to travel south into Arizona and New Mexico, coming back to trade. You know, it's interesting though. You know, for Native Americans, apparently, when you think about migration and the theory behind the migration of the people who became Native Americans in America before America was America, is that they all came over that piece of land between Russia and Alaska and kind of spread their way around. At this time, there was, it was the Ice Age. So you have that on top of it, the Ice Age lasted until about 11,000 years ago. So you have these groups and families of people that trekked from one place to the other and around, and they went in these groups, and they populated those areas. So it's just interesting to see how they spread out. And you also have to think of the Vikings, who ended up going to New England and landing there because they found a bunch of Viking stuff there. So that's kind of interesting. But as time goes on, we do find artifacts that sort of redirect people's theory on how America was founded and what it really is. So anyway, back to the Anasazi. Right? They lived in that area. Then they traveled south into Arizona, New Mexico, and then coming back to trade. Evidence shows the Anasazi traded with people as far away as Mexico and were farmers of corn, beans, and squash. These three staples of the Iroquois and the Seneca tribes of New York are known as gifts from the white buffalo woman. They are called the Three Sisters in a myth and are known throughout Native American tribes in North America. In Hopi legend, the Three Sisters were gifts from Spider Woman, who also taught them how to farm, and she also taught them how to weave and make pottery. The Hopi believed that we have just entered the fifth world when evil came into the third world. It was she who brought them to the fourth world. So the Hopi agreed to be caretakers in exchange to live there in every aspect of life. Maintaining a balance between nature and people is the Hopi way. Their ceremonial celebrations of this balance help ensure that their way of life goes on. So the creation mythology that spans the different cultures in the world all have almost the same beginnings. Life was created from earth. I find it fascinating, though, that there's so many different religions and how things split apart. Like it was all written on the same page, and you see how humans had taken it in so many different directions. You know what I mean? But it's all based on the same story. So in Hopi mythology, Spider Woman, who ruled the underworld from her and her consort Tawa, the sun god who ruled the sky, used their thoughts to create Earth. Then Spider Woman molded animals and humans from clay, spread a blanket that she wove over her creations, and she and Tawa sang them to life. It's interesting because in Chinese culture and mythology, you hear the sky dragon and the earth dragon, and then how they basically, it's very similar to this story. Every culture's got similar stories, right? So After the Hopi made their promise, life on Earth was cultivated and it prospered. The first humans spread throughout the planet and they became different races, lived on different continents, and spoke different languages, but still using their inner eye. They could understand each other without talking, felt at one with one another, and they felt as one with the animals, right? Different time, different place, man. Over time, some people forgot what they were here for. They forgot they made a promise. They forgot about Spider Woman and Tawa. The people began to divide between languages and races in different lands. Some humans forgot how to feel at one each other's feelings, and have that empathy for each other, right? And also the animals. And animals sensed the disconnect and began to run from humans. Only some people remembered how to stay connected, and those people didn't run from one another. So, as a myth can go, during the first world, Tawa had made insect like beings that resided underground. But he grew so unhappy with the first world, he decided to destroy it. He sent out a call that only those who still remembered their promise could hear. They began to travel from all over the world following it. Even some people who couldn't hear it believed them and traveled with them anyway. When they were all together near the ant people's home, Tawa told them of his plan. They asked, "How will we survive underground for so long? Surely it would take a long time for another world to be ready for us." Tawa told them, "Learn from the ant people. You will survive my destruction, and I will create a second world. When I have it ready for you to live in, I will come get you." Down under the surface, they went, and with the ant people, they saw how the insects had stored their food, which they had gathered in the summer for winter, and how now they went without because they were there to feed, right? So despite protests from humans, the ant people simply pulled their belts tighter, and this is why ants have such tiny waists today. How's that? The humans saw how the ant people obeyed the laws of creation and how they lived in peace with each other. They dug rooms and trails in the dirt, and the people learned to keep warm when they were cold. And how to keep cool when they were hot. So they could see in the dark caverns. They learned how to use their third eye, which was the spot behind the middle of their foreheads that they communicated with. The crystals underground had absorbed the sunlight from above, and using their inner eye, the humans used the reflections to navigate underground. So this is all kind of interesting stuff, man. I like the stories. So, as the destruction of the first world was almost complete and the earth cooled down, Tawa began to move continents. From the second world, he put the oceans where the land was and land where the ocean had been. After he retrieved the humans from the ant people's homes and brought them into the second world eventually, the same thing happened again. Some people forgot and some people remembered. This time, Tawa sent the Spider Woman to lead them through into the third world. Then evil invaded. So Spider Woman taught the humans how to get into the fourth world. So, and here's a big picture of the Spider Woman. The Nazca spider, as old as 200 BC. These designs can only be viewed from sky. So the question is, and I know this is all, the human interpretation, their perception of what these people were, and they can only describe them basically by their limited vocabulary and what they know, association from what they have seen around them, right? Ants, for instance, or whatever. So, all right. Also, you got to consider the fact that 17, 18,000 years ago, humans didn't use tools. Maybe we're using chicken bones as tools or some kind of bones, right? Rocks and bones and that type of thing. These ant people had tools and they had advanced knowledge. These weren't ants crawling on the ground that knew about math and knew about stars and all these survival techniques on top of that. These were a people obviously with advanced technology and dealing with people that didn't have any technology and just trying to help them survive. And this story of destruction of the floods and whatever, every culture's got it. You've heard of Noah, which I believe is a whole different type of situation, but the big flood, the big destruction, and this over and over again type of thing, right? So interesting that there's this is a little off the scope, but let me see. There was an article written about these spheres in Costa Rica, and you probably see it. Ancient Aliens. They had a couple spheres on there, so they touch base on that. So these were made about 600 AD. They span 8 feet in diameter and weigh 16 tons. Right, there have been about 300 discovered. These are man-made black granite balls that have been, written about by conquistador Francisco Pizarro in 1547. He stated that the lords of the empire gather every 4 years in the country of the balls, where they receive advice from great wise men. They were already known to be man-made. The only issue, basically, is there's, I guess, the giant one weighing in so far at 40 tons and 11 feet in diameter. It was discovered in Bosnia. In all the countries that have bragging rights to their giant balls, Bosnia, Costa Rica, Mexico, Easter Island, Southern Europe, and the Balkans. Number one, there's also North Korea, but nobody will let anybody in there to find anything about anything, but there weren't any in the United States, put it that way. So, but what were people like 1,500 years ago? I mean, were people that crafty to make things for almost no reason? Probably. They had a lot of time on their hands. They didn't have to do anything, right? Hunt, fish, whatever they got to do for food, and aside from that, make babies. And aside from that, pretty much nothing. So we're going to continue. We're going to continue about the cackle culture. So, because people focus on these developments, but this isn't where the ant people took them under the ground. I believe that it's a place west of Shiprock. Actually, there's a volcano there, and it really seems like it's the center of the whole burrito. You know what I mean? So, in 900 BC, which was the first dated evidence of human occupation of the Cackle Canyon, comes from an archaeological site project by a cliff overhang, and it's sheltered in an area protected, with fragile materials. They were able to be dated. So early people were likely hunting and gathering throughout the canyon. Human occupation of the canyon likely began earlier, though. So this goes back 900 BC. They really don't have an answer of when and how long, right? And then from then on, they started building villages. I mean, 200 AD, they had villages going 700s, small house sites, that type of thing. In 850 to 1150, it served as a major center for ancestral Puebloan culture, and this was like a meeting place for other natives, Native Americans around there, right? And this goes on and on and on. So then you get the Aztecs, right? So the Aztecs, all right. So this is particularly in New Mexico, Colorado area, where they found a lot of Aztec developments, we'll say, right? So, but Aztec in the immediate area had been occupied and used for over 1,000 years. Ancestral Pueblans reached their peak around 1100 AD. Approximately 200 years later, the area was abandoned for reasons that are unclear. Theories include a 23-year-old drought that began in 1276 and raids from enemy tribes, because it wasn't all hunky-dory with the natives. In America, the story now about Native Americans is that they're all victims and you gotta feel bad, and there's a lot of elements that you really do, because they got screwed so many times. But before they got screwed, by the white man, they were killing each other, having these tribal raids. It wasn't all like, hey, we're just going to chill. We got a little area. We got our food. We got our water and all that. No, no. I mean, these guys took land from one another and horrible, bloody battles on top of that. So, but the Aztec ruins, on the west bank of the Animas River is the Aztec Ruins National Monument, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that was built in 12th century by ancestral Pueblans using stone and mortar to create massive masonry. But, it's interesting that the Aztecs, who have an amazing history, are here also in close proximity with these other Native Americans, who they kind of seem like all in tune with one another, and I like that fact. I like the fact that it was a meeting place, it was a gathering place, probably like their version of a town hall, but it was a whole city, this Cackle Canyon, right, where they had built, you know, all these apartments into the walls, and very interesting. And now, of course, people flock there in large groups to check it out. But and you should, if you're out there, definitely get that history and get the feel of the energy, But as for Shiprock, why there? Why do you think that so many people have the Skinwalker sightings? No, really, where else either. I know there's that Skinwalker show. I've never watched it. I mean, maybe I've seen it for 5 minutes, but it just seems like more claptrap. They're trying to sell you. These are real people not trying to make any money. These real people telling stories on like what they experienced just about Shiprock and that whole area, right? So skinwalkers are known as shapeshifters. They're known as some kind of a Native American witch that can do all kinds of stuff and, pretty much produce evil for you in your life, right? Yeah, something that you don't want to encounter. You don't want to meet a skinwalker. So, this one person said, I grew up near the res. The most Navajos I knew had experience with skinwalkers. Either they or a family member had. The fact that there are witches who have to murder an immediate family member is pretty freaky in of itself. So let's see. Briefly, skinwalkers are thought to be Navajo, by the Navajo to be witches that can shape shift and to mimic such animals as coyotes or other animals. Uh, this person writes, my understanding is that such shifts are possible, although by the time anyone had obtained any such skill, unlikely they would be concerned with the affairs of humans. Many Navajo apparently feel differently, and much myth and legend involved in such a thing. People with such skill would not be confined to the American Southwest. Maybe they're not, and maybe there's other people. Maybe they have to be if it's some kind of energy there that they're connected to, right? This person writes, I used to live in Farmington and worked with a lot of Navajo women. They tried to teach me a lot about their culture, and many of them have known someone who has an encounter with a skinwalker or died from one. I was told that they take the skin of an animal and wear it, and they're basically witches. They kill you by making you sick or by another animal or snake bite. They apparently come out of nowhere and run at fast speeds like an animal. Remember, I told you about the skinwalker running up on that guy's truck at 65 miles an hour. This guy says, my uncle works with the Navajo man who encountered a skinwalker. The guy said he was coming from Gallup late at night on the same road, right? There's only the one. And he was about to fall asleep at the wheel when he stopped on the side of the road to try to wake himself up. Right when he stepped out of the car, he saw something gliding across the treetops, like in the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And let me tell you, there's not a lot of treetops on that road, so you could probably really define the area because it's pretty much desert, laid out, red rock type of thing. He said he was scared stiff. Then the skinwalker stopped, and they were just sitting atop the trees. He looked at the skinwalker and saw an old lady with a painted face. He said he doesn't know how he got home, but there are many stories of skinwalkers chasing cars. That's why. That's why you don't like driving from Gallup late at night. So there you go. You have more stories about people driving between Gallup and Shiprock, or Gallup and Farmington, with skinwalker stories on that stretch of road, that particular stretch of road, you know. And this guy is saying treetops and trees. There's only one area I can really think about that's got those kinds of trees, and that's when you're up at Shiprock. Between Shiprock and Farmington, there's a river down there, and because there's a river, there's an abundance of life and trees and that type of thing. So this person says, I've heard a few stories involving skinwalkers between Gallup and Shiprock. It's a scary drive through the res at night, knowing what goes on. So this is what I'm going to do in a couple of weeks. I'm going to drive on that very same road and go live. I have a hotspot. You know what I mean? So I can go live through the internet via my hotspot, which connects to any tower. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere, it does an amazing job. Even if you're going 80 miles an hour down the road, it does an amazing job. I'm going to look for these skinwalkers, man. I'm interested in that. So let's see, we got some time left. So basically, all right, this one describes it better. In the American Southwest, the Navajo, Hopi, Utes, and other tribes each have their own version of the skinwalker, but each boils down to the exact same thing. Just pretty much nasty entity, a witch capable of transforming itself into a wolf, coyote, bear, bird, or any other animal. When the transformation is complete, the human witch inherits the speed, strength, or cunning of the animal whose shape it was taken. Ooh. From the Navajo and other tribes of the Southwest, the tales of skinwalkers are not legend. These people, it's very real. So, anthropologist David Zimmerman of the Navajo Nation Historic Preservation Department explains skinwalkers are folks that possess knowledge of medicine, both practical, healing the sick, and spiritual, to maintain harmony, and they are both wrapped together in ways that are nearly impossible to untangle. See, that sounds a little nicer than the person chasing you down with the glowing eyes and whatever in the middle of the night trying to kill you. And BTW, a lot of people out there have guns and they carry, it's not like being in New York that's got gun laws all over the place. People out there can have a pistol and carry it in their vehicle. Most of them do because of the bears and this and that and whatever can come get them. So you definitely want some kind of pistoli or some kind of shotgun rifle, something for self-preservation, even against two-legged varmints. You know what I mean? Because there's those people too who are out there looking to do you harm on the road. But this dude in the truck had a gun mounted, because that's what these guys do. They mount guns on the back of their window, so it's in the truck. This thing's clawing at him. He was so panicked and flipped out, he didn't even think about grabbing his rifle that was behind him. That's when your brain shuts down. That's why I tell people about firearms and about they think they're going to protect themselves. When the stuff goes down, you have a good chance of losing it in your cranium, not being able to function, becoming going into shock. There's physical shock. There's also a mental shock where people kind of just can't digest what's happening at that moment in time because they're trying to wrap their heads around it. The best people to be in situations like that are the ones who are immediately reactionary, to a situation and know enough to get the hell out when there's something bad going on, right? Like the guy speeding up away from this skinwalker. So many stories about skinwalkers attacking people between Gallup and Farmington, really, or Gallup and Shiprock. So really cool. All right. Skinwalkers are not boogeymen. They are the figures made up to scare children. Unlike Anglo stories about werewolves and witches, they don't lose control and kill everything in their path or maliciously curse people for no reason. Like humans, they do kill, and like humans, they have motivations for those acts of aggression. Power and revenge fuel their murderous intent, but such things cannot occupy the brain as rational creature at the time. Skinwalkers do not make murder part of their daily routine. Oh, they were crawling at this dude, clawing at him. What did he do? They're just pissed off, driving through their territory. So, where are they? Where do they live? Are they in shiprock? Are they underground? They live in crevices? Do they magnetically show up, man? They cross some kind of door and all of a sudden they're there? Because obviously it's on this road. And also, people have seen a lot of ghosts on this road. They've seen, not even seen, stopped and picked them up and taken them for a ride and dropped them off, and then the person's gone type of ghosts. So you also have that type of thing happening on this Route 666. I'm still going to call it Route 666 because it was named appropriately. Whoever named it, they named it right because it's a very raw feeling being on that road. So, skinwalkers have been reported by both native and non-native people, including a popular story here in New Mexico of skinwalkers being seen by state police on a stretch of roadway near on Navajo territory. A skinwalker is tied up with a Navajo concept of good and evil, but the Navajo believe that life is a kind of wind blowing through you. Some people have a dark wind and they tend to be evil, you know, and then there are people that don't, and they tend not to be. So that's pretty damn simple, right? So are they real? But who can say? Who can say? These people had a very real experience. It wasn't just one or two or three. You got state police, you got people like that who report. You got just regular old people going into a blog saying, hey, I saw this happened to somebody I know. People who are Navajo, people who aren't Navajo, right? So, but regardless, the tales, legends of skinwalkers is going to be out there. It's meaningful to Native American people, certainly in New Mexico, and it's rooted in their history and tradition. So, like many other things, we don't always understand about different cultures. It doesn't command people's respect when they think about skinwalkers, because not a lot of people were bringing skinwalkers up. I mean, when I first started doing this show, I brought it up, and then it was even hard finding information on the internet about skinwalkers because that's when the internet basically first started, and a lot of people weren't talking about it. But I think that as subjects grow, and people want to talk more about their personal experiences, that's a whole different animal, right? So, what do you guys think about all this, man? What do you think about this homage to people from the sky? The Navajo tell of the star people that came down. Think about that. And and the reality of, I mean, they had certain names for them, and the Hopi also told about these same types. So it all comes from reality. These aren't just stories. These are things that these people experienced, and we know that, and we know what they have learned from those experiences too, right? So one of the Hopi religious societies is the Katsina Society, right? According to Barry Priskler, reflecting the close association between the world of the living and the world of the dead, spirits play an integral role in the land of the living. They are associated with clouds and benevolent supernatural entities called Katsinam. The plural is Katsina, which inhabit the San Francisco peaks just north of Flagstaff, Arizona. I was just on that road. I was just out there in September. So going up to Page from Flagstaff. According to Suzanne and Jake Page, the Katsinam are the spirit of all things in the universe, the rocks, stars, animals, planets, and ancestors who have lived good lives. So around 1325 CE, the Kachina masks and Kachina dancers appear as rock art. working their way into their lives in these stories, right? So of course these stories are going to have things that are removed or changed, embellished over time, but they all came from a certain point of view of something that had happened to them, right? You know, so as opposed to the Star Children and all that, we don't even have time to go into that right now. But it's worth it's worth learning about. It's worth exploring. It's worth experiencing the energy. It's one thing going on Google Earth and looking at this and looking at that and all this other stuff from above. The map is not the territory. You really need to experience it and taste it, smell it, have the whole bit, talk to locals, stop in. Those people in those little towns up there in Colorado and Utah and New Mexico, Arizona, in that Four Corner region, those little towns, they're the most bored people on the planet, man. They will talk your ear off. I don't care if they're working at a gas station. I don't care if they're sitting there shining shoes. These people have a history and they're bored. So they look up at the sky a lot. They know about these stories. So Native Americans, they're kind of tight-lipped around the white man. There's a huge issue there, as a matter of fact. If you've ever experienced any of them, gone to any reservations, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a thing that they just can't get over. It's called hate. That's it. Hate. Hating people who basically dismantled and destroyed their civilization. Because aside from the warring factions and killing each other, they had it pretty good with things. But then, whenever things start off, it's usually pretty neutral and pretty good. And then at some point, someone comes along with ill intentions and they pervert it for themselves, or they just use it, for their own personal gain, like the internet, right? When it first started, there wasn't a lot of ads. It was freewheeling. Oh, we got Napster, man. You can download music and movies, and they made all that illegal. But it really came down to, which is file sharing, and if file sharing is illegal, why is Uber legal? Why is all these other services legal? That are shares, Airbnb. Why are they legal? Right? I mean, I don't know. It's not the same, but it is the same. So, anyways, now you can't even click on a website without having 40 ads pop up, or as you're trying to read some story, it's just more ads or videos running and all these things popping up in your face, and you have to kind of just readjust your page so you can read, or some obnoxious thing pops up and they want you to follow them. They want to follow you. When I go on Facebook now, I report every ad as offensive, and I've got my friends to do it too. There's a lot of people. We're all kind of doing it now. So it got to the point where these Facebook spiders are hating on me, and now it just doesn't even go. It goes to a blank page now when I click on things. Like they've had it. They've handed me over to the advertisers that I click on that I find offensive. Now these advertisers are contacting me in my email saying, what do you find offensive about us? Oh, I lay into them, man. I find like it's like a new hobby to me, like professional troll or something. I find great satisfaction into doing this, and I think that if everybody did it, it would change all the social media all at once, because the way to change them is to go after their wallet and you follow the money. If you know how it motivates people, that mainly is what motivates people. You start clipping at their wallet, they're going to step right in line and start giving you the rights that you deserve, But instead of people speaking their mind and get suspended on Facebook or put in Facebook jail, they put me in Facebook jail for 24 hours on a picture I put up 4 years ago. So if they're willing to go that far back and put people, you know what? They can suck ass, man. Suck ass. Because who has time for that? Who has time for that? And who the hell are they to do something like that? Really? There's stuff I see on there that I think is pretty bad that shouldn't be on. These are the ads that they put on there. So good riddance, man. Good riddance. I'll still be out there rattling the cage and doing my thing. As for the Hopi Indians, I'm going to be talking to these guys in a couple of weeks, man. I'm going to poke through that whole region. I'm going to spend some time, of just trying to wrap my head around, one, where my father grew up, an eagle nest in the middle of nowhere. You're talking about middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mountain is Dallas, New Mexico, where I will be staying, and there's beautiful cabins. So you have this really nice area. I mean, all those areas are beautiful. I mean, we're talking about the elevation. I think Dallas, New Mexico, that elevation is almost 10,000 feet, man. You're up there. So, and the mountain peaks go way higher. This is like the top of the world in the Rocky Mountains type of situation. So, and I love the high elevation. When I was out there back in the fall, it was amazing. And when I left there, I missed it. I had to come back for a lot of reasons, but you know, when I left there, the food didn't taste right anymore. The people were so kind and nice there. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. And that's Colorado. I'm talking about. People so kind and nice. Everybody was just really friendly, nice, just amazing people. And that's the best reason of all to be in a place. Because who wants to be around a bunch of toxic cranks? Welcome to Central New York. Anyway, I will see you guys next week on the show. Probably be on the road by then. Until then, I'm saying goodnight from United Public Radio Network and Discovery Paranormal. Put your seats back up right and think about those skinwalkers coming to get you in the night. Bye.